Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, straight from the Bluegrass borough of Brooklyn, New York.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 7. My name is Liz Wolfe.
And I'm Mike Wilner.
And we are so excited to welcome onto today's show the First Lady of Banjo-Bluegrass, Alison Brown.
Yeah.
Such a wonderful opportunity to speak to her and such an insightful interview.
By the way, the intro music for this episode was Allison playing Girls Breakdown on her Fair Weather album. And it really prompted me to go back and look at the history of women in banjo, and we have a little segment on that for the listeners.
That's why today's episode is really special if you're a banjo player. And if you are a banjo player, I want to encourage you to look into the camp that Alison Brown is having October 6th through 10th up in the Berkshire Mountains in North Adams, Massachusetts. She describes it in the podcast, but it's at this place called the Porches Inn, and it's going to be fall foliage, prime time. What's really cool is she has an all-female faculty that is including another award-winning banjo player, Kristen Scott Benson, and then well-known to some of us here in the Brooklyn, New York area, BB Bonus. So
Amazing.
Definitely encourage you to look into participating in that. So the other fun thing is we're both going to be at IBMA next week, and she is co-hosting the IBMA Awards with none other than Steve Martin. And as she says in her interview, that's like a pinch me moment.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. We're also going to be meeting a lot of our favorite musicians, and we're going to get to do some remote podcasting and all that stuff. So should be fun. Looking forward to it.
So don't forget to follow us at Bluegrass Brooklyn, or of course you can find us at bluegrassbrooklyn.com, and Brooklyn is spelled BKLYN, and we've got all the podcast episodes there for you to listen to.
Yep. Okay, should we get started?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's roll.
Well, hello and welcome, Alison Brown, to the Bluegrass Brooklyn podcast. So happy to have you on. It's really a pleasure, and I will say an honor to have you here with us. So thanks for joining.
Well, thank you so much, Liz, for having me.
And my understanding is you're in Nashville right now.
Yes, I am back in Nashville for a minute.
And is that where you live?
I've lived here since the 1900s, actually. I moved here to play with Alison Krauss in Union Station in the 1990s. So now I guess I'm really a Nashvilleian.
My first question for you that I've been pondering since I knew I would be interviewing you is, why the banjo?
For me, it was just hearing Earl Scruggs' Foggy Mountain Banjo record. I just loved the sound of the instrument and knew that I wanted to play it. And I was taking fingerstyle guitar lessons at the time, and I was maybe 10 years old the first time I heard the banjo. My parents were like, well, you have to stick with the guitar first, and if you do that, then you can take banjo lessons this coming summer. So that's what happened. It was my summer project that's expanded over a lifetime.
Isn't that great?
That's what I love about the instrument. I think it's pretty accessible. It's tuned to an open chord, obviously. So I like to tell people the first chord's free.
First chord's free, that's great. So tell us how you went from that 10-year-old self to being in this moment where you're playing with Steve Martin and all these up for IBMA awards and Grammy winning and all that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, really. I mean, I never would have thought when I was growing up that I would be doing what I'm doing now, because my parents were both lawyers, and they really thought that banjo was fine conversation topic for cocktail parties when I was hopefully a doctor. And the pre-med thing just didn't work out, so I bailed out of that about halfway through college and went to business school because it was only 2 years as opposed to law school that was 3 years. It's like a terrible reason to go to business school. And went into investment banking because that's what everybody who was getting an MBA in the 80s wanted to do. Also not a good reason to do something. And did that for a few years until I just really found myself wondering what I could do with the banjo if I could spend even a fraction of the amount of time that I was spending on tax-exempt bond issues on the banjo instead. I think that the way I got here was by a series of baby steps rather than one giant leap. Kind of like, okay, let me take 6 months off from investment banking, fully intending to go and get another respectable white collar job. And instead, I wrote some music that became my first record, Simple Pleasures, and then got a call from Alison Krauss, who was looking for a banjo player.
Mhm.
So, like at every crossroads, something happened to help me stay on the banjo path. After I played with Allison, I was trying to figure out the next thing to do. I'd been in her band for 3 years. I had a record out. And just as I was literally thinking of applying to law school at Vanderbilt, I got a call from Michelle Schacht, who was looking for a band leader for her world tour. And so there I was, like leading a band that was to put across not only the string band music on her newest record, but the R&B stuff and folk rock stuff from her previous records. So that was really expansive. And then we got to the end of the year of touring with Michelle, trying to figure out what was going to happen, and then got the opportunity to launch a record label through distributing a very small niche catalog. We met the brothers who started this company down in Australia. So that's how we launched Compass Records. So every time there was a fork in the road, something happened
Mhm.
to help me stay on the musical path. But truly, when I think about it now and think about, wait, I'm co-hosting the IBMA Awards with Steve Martin, I'm like, what? How did that even happen? Because I remember going to see The Jerk with Stuart Duncan when we were like 14 years old. It's like I never would have believed that I would be doing this.
That is great. For those of you that are listening, this is coming out on the 17th, so you'll be hosting on the 18th. I'm actually going to be at that show.
Oh, fantastic.
So that'll be so great that I'll get to be able to watch you do that. Of all the people that I looked through the list of, I got this off the internet, so who knows
Mhm.
what the accuracy of all of it is, but Jackson Brown, Vince Gill, Tim O'Brien, Brian Sutton, Vicky Vaughn, who was previously on this podcast, Steve Martin, of course. But then there's some of my favorites, like the Indigo Girls. I'm a huge Indigo Girls fan. I
Me
loved
too.
listening to
Yep.
that. But my very most favorite, Jake Shimabukuro. I am a ukulele player from way back. That's how I
Oh,
started. That's how I got into bluegrass. I know that ukulele is not a bluegrass instrument, but wow, that listening to that, and then of course he's just somebody that I've admired for so long. So where did that idea even come from?
oh, I'm a huge fan of his too. I love his playing. I love his live show. It's amazing what he can do with just four strings, like one less than I have, and he's making so much music out of that. So we'd met when he played in Nashville. And when I was working on Song of the Banjo record, we came up with this idea of doing a version of the Chuck Mangione tune, Feels So Good. And so I thought, I'll just reach out to Jake and see if he'd be into it. And he, of course, is like the nicest person in the world. So he and his wife were expecting their second child like any minute. But he still went in the studio and he was in Honolulu. He's a really special musician. I love his playing.
Just watching him play, and it's incredible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And ukulele might not be a bluegrass instrument, but if you're listening to this podcast, I just recommend that you get one because they are so much fun to play. And forever I'd heard, how do you tune a ukulele? It's like my dog has fleas. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
I could never really understand that. And then you realize it's really just the same as the top four strings of guitar in a sense, right? Except
Mhm.
the top string on the ukulele is up an octave from the fourth string would be on a guitar. So now it's like the same as a banjo. If you play guitar, all of a sudden that fingering is right there, but the scale length is so much shorter that now your fingers can reach all these things that you can't usually reach. And it is so much fun. So everybody should have one.
And I also want to say again for anybody listening to this, like there are people on this that listen that probably are interested in bluegrass but don't play an instrument, is that it is relatively easy to play and then to make that transition to the guitar. That is what made
Mhm.
all the difference for me because the chord shapes were the same and the tuning is similar and all that. So that's beautiful magic of music.
Completely agreed. It's a great gateway into guitar and other things, and easy to start making music right away, which is always my goal for people. It's like the goal in picking up an instrument isn't to shred, I think. That was never my goal. The reason to play music and pick up an instrument is to be able to connect with other people through music. And there's nothing like music to bring people together. So that's the first goal. So get a ukulele because then like you're like playing a tune really fast or even better like a banjo, first chord's free. You just need to finger one chord and then you have two chords and then you can play Tom Dooley. It's like you're there really
Yeah.
fast. And as soon as you could get in the jam circle, that's when it really starts to get fun.
I know a lot of professional bluegrass musicians don't spend a lot of time in jam circles. So is that something that you still participate in?
We only don't because we're just too busy moving around. And whenever we're in a jam, it's the people who are playing full time. We're all like, this is so fun. We should do this more often. So it's not because you don't want to. It's just because you get to that place where the playing is still the fun part, but you're like getting paid to travel, and the travel is always time consuming and tiring. But jamming is like the best. There is nothing like it for just really connecting with others. And it doesn't matter what your skill level is. And if you're just starting out, find some other people who are maybe just starting out but are a little ahead of you, and they'll bring you along. And I don't know, the energy is always just very welcoming and positive, I've found in our community, which is one of the special things about it.
I completely agree. It is basically my entire social life, but you're expanding beyond performing into teaching as well. So tell us about that.
I feel like part of all of our responsibility as we learn to play an instrument is to be a link in the chain and passing that tradition along to other people, whether they're people that are older than you or younger than you or the same age as you are. And so I launched an Artist Works school about 2 years ago. And it's been just a really fantastic experience. One of the great things about Artist Works is there's a video exchange platform, so students can send you a video of themselves playing a lesson, and then you can send a lesson back where you can critique their technique and offer suggestions. And I just found it really, really rewarding getting to help people improve their banjo playing. And I've done the camps over the years too, and I've made friendships with people who are my students that have lasted over decades. And so when the Freshgrass Institute came to me with the idea of starting a banjo camp, I was all over it because it's something that I've had in the back of my mind to do for a long time. Sharing the tradition and playing it forward, I think, is just such a beautiful thing. And I also think that if you've been playing an instrument for half a century like I have now, you've learned certain things that can help other people get to the point of enjoying the instrument faster. And being able to share those things really is a privilege.
So what's special about this camp, which for the listeners to know is happening October 6th through 10th?
So this is part of the special thing about this camp is it's taking place in North Adams, Massachusetts, which is in the Berkshires, and it'll be at the peak of fall foliage season. So it's a destination location without the banjos. And then you add the banjos, and then it just becomes everything that you could ever want in one place. So it's centered around a boutique hotel called Porches, which are some Victorian row houses that have been converted to this really nice hotel. So the accommodations will be very luxurious. The food is great. There's even a heated swimming pool there, and they also have a recording studio called Studio 9. So that'll be the campus for the camp. And
That
so the reason that's great is because someone like yourself who has a significant other who doesn't play, they
Mm.
can still come along and enjoy the amenities and the fall foliage at the same time.
And you have an all-woman faculty.
Yes, I've wanted to do this for the longest time, and I'm so proud and delighted that there are other women now who are at the level where they have chops that they can pass along. Kristen Scott Benson and BB Bowness are two of the great banjo players, and they're joining me on the faculty. And I think for most of us, our first teachers are women, and I've experienced it. And I think it's maybe easier for many people to learn from a woman than to learn from a man. And I'm also very aware that as we get older, it's harder to fail in public. We are used to doing the thing we know how to do, but as adults, we don't usually do the thing we don't do very well around other people. And so, a lot of what I want to do with this camp is to create a very nurturing environment, a safe place where people can feel comfortable reaching for the next thing. And if they don't get there, that's okay. It's a no stress situation where hopefully everybody can get their banjo playing up to the next level.
That's so interesting that you mentioned getting to a place where we are now able to have an all-women faculty. Of course, nobody would have questioned an all-male faculty, at any
Exactly. I mean, that's always been like with the token female,
exactly.
but now it's the tide is turning slowly but surely.
Yes, it absolutely is. I'm segueing into one of my favorite topics is what have you experienced as a woman in bluegrass, as you say, half a century of playing the banjo and coming up into this world? What have you seen that's been changing and what's been your experience?
Well, when I started to play in the 70s, you know, there were so few women playing bluegrass on the national stage that there were really no role models. I mean, I was aware of Ronnie Stoneman, but it's not really the same thing, like in terms of somebody like really just trying to play banjo at the highest technical level. You'd go to jam sessions and people would always say, "You sure do pick good for a girl." Now, I don't know if you have heard that, but we heard that all the time. I talk to Missy Raines about this all the time. She and I are like, oh, if we could have $1 for every time we heard that. And fast forward now, and I look at the IBMA awards and the number of women that are nominated for Instrumentalist of the Year. I mean, in the banjo category alone, 3/5 of the nominees
Mm.
are women, which is incredible. So it's been slow, but slowly but surely, women have made their presence known in bluegrass music, and I think now are making some of the most exciting and forward-thinking bluegrass music that's ever been made. And I think it's in women's hands, bluegrass music can be more accessible to people coming to this genre from outside of bluegrass. I think if you are a country music fan or Americana folk fan, but you've never really gotten into bluegrass, and you hear a female voice singing a bluegrass song, that's a lot more relatable than if you hear Del McCoury, who I love, but like the high lonesome male voice, that's something you get to. But Claire Lynch, Alison Krauss, H.A. Lee, Molly Tuttle, Sierra Hull, Bronwyn Keith Hines, all those voices are just so relatable that I think that women can really draw a lot more fans to the music. I find it to be a very positive thing. And then, of course, there's the First Ladies of Bluegrass.
That's right. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a group that came together when I realized that we were on the precipice of having a five-piece band of women who were all the first Instrumentalist of the Year award winners on their respective instruments. And when Molly Tuttle won Guitar Player of the Year about 10 years ago or so, we had a five-piece band. So that became the First Ladies of Bluegrass. And it's interesting to me because it took 27 years from the time I won
Mhm.
Banjo Player of the Year until we had a full five-piece band. So that is a quarter of a century plus, but still, we did it. And I can't tell you how many young women have come up to me and the other first ladies just say how important it was for them to see someone who looked like them playing bluegrass music. Vicki Vaughn says that to me all the time. She says, when
Mm.
I saw Missy Raines play bass, I could see myself doing that. So it's a really powerful thing. And I think that as more and more women are in the national spotlight, there will be more and more women up and comers in bluegrass music. And at some point, we'll get to parity and beyond.
I know that being three-fifths of the nominations, that's a really big deal. And
It's huge.
it's a big deal, and I want to make sure that how I'm communicating it is that won't it be wonderful when it's not a big deal?
Hmm. Yes, it will. And at some point, that will probably happen. But for now, it's exciting to think that at this tipping point as women in bluegrass, and I believe that if we really encourage each other and bring each other along in this music, that we can create that reality, like the reality we want to live in.
A prominent person you have played with is Steve Martin, and you're hosting the IBMA Awards. So, what's it like playing with Steve Martin?
Oh, it's both like a pinch me moment constantly and just the easiest, most natural thing you could do. He's a really intuitive musician and he's got a great touch on the banjo. He plays both three finger and clawhammer. I especially love his clawhammer playing. And we've got a record that's coming out in October together. And we just started writing music after we collaborated on a song that's on my last record that's called Foggy Morning Breaking. That song got a really warm response from Bluegrass Radio. And Steve was so excited about that when that song went to number one on Bluegrass Radio, he texted me the lyrics to a song about having a number one song on Bluegrass Radio. And so then we wrote that song, which is called Bluegrass Radio. And then we just kept writing songs. And then we looked up and we're like, hey, I think we have an album's worth. And honestly, of all the things I've ever done, any collaboration I've ever done, this one's probably been the easiest just in terms of the flow of ideas and creating the music. It's been so much fun.
And one is up for Song of the Year.
Yeah, we have a single that we put out in March with Tim O'Brien that's called 5 Days Out, 2 Days Back. And we got nominations for Song of the Year, Collaborative Performance of the Year, and also Music Video of the Year. We're both really excited to have those nominations and to be co-hosting the awards. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I'm so happy I'll be there for that. So thank you so much for all of your time today. Again, I encourage any banjo players that are listening that might be wanting to come up to Massachusetts for what's bound to be a spectacular experience in the midst of beautiful fall season and learning from not just Allison, but these other amazing women. You've
You
inspired me.
should. First chord's free, Liz.
First chord is free. I love it. So, what I'm taking away from this is pursuing what's interesting to you. Don't make it more significant than it is, right? Just get a ukulele, play a few chords on the ukulele. All you got to learn is G, C, and D, and a little F once in a while. And you can play literally hundreds and hundreds of songs. And then you can become Alison Brown.
Yeah, or you can just meet your new best friends.
Yeah.
And share the fellowship of music. Obviously, music is the international language, and you hear people say that, but when you actually get to experience it, you realize how powerful it is that once you've got those 3 or 4 chords, you can sit down and make music with people that don't speak the same language that you do and spend hours enjoying each other's company. And it's such a powerful thing. It's such a powerful connector. There's nothing else like it for humanity. It's the best.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining. I do encourage everyone to go and listen to Allison's music. I just don't have enough time here to describe the breadth and the expanse of the music that you've made. It's so many different influences, so many collaborators. There's so many wonderful, wonderful things that you've contributed to Bluegrass. So we thank you for that, and we look forward to seeing you on the award show.
Well, sounds great. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Liz.
I was so inspired listening to Allison and Liz talk about the role of women in bluegrass music and the way we developed a whole core, an entire cohort of women who are virtuosos on the banjo and other instruments as well, and how that's enriching our music and helping us keep the music alive. I felt like looking backwards, though. I wanted to go and see, what about the women who started all this, who were the original pioneers of playing bluegrass and related music? So it's quite an interesting journey, and I'd like to share that with you. What I learned was the following. There were a number of female musicians very early on who were known for playing banjo. Loretta Crabtree was one of the earliest pioneers, and she was an actress and singer. And then she became a banjo virtuoso. Samantha Baumgartner, also known as Aunt Samantha, was one of the first women to start recording authentic Appalachian music in the 20s. And let's listen to a tune called Shout, Lou, where she's calling a square dance, because we know dancing is at the heart of this music. So let's have a listen. We also have Cynthia May Carver, who's also known as Cousin Emmy, born in the early 1900s, whose career spanned from the 20s and 30s straight through the 40s and 50s, where she appeared on radio and personal appearances frequently. She was not only a banjo virtuoso, but she was a fiddle virtuoso as well. But let's give a listen to her tune called Graveyard.
Graveyard
graveyard. You can bury me in some lonesome graveyard. You can
A foundational figure in the pantheon of female banjo players is Ronnie Stoneman. She joined her father's Pop Stoneman's band in the 50s and played with them up through the 60s, and after his death in the late 60s went on to a solo career. She's an amazing virtuoso and has served as an inspiration for women who wanted to learn and excel at the banjo, even to today. Let's listen to her playing the Lonesome Road Blues. Another towering figure in the world of women banjo players is Alice Gerard. Alice has a long career and is still with us performing even into her 90s, which is amazing. She recorded many songs with the legendary Hazel Dickens. Let's listen to one. It's called Train on the Island.
train on the island, hear the whistle blow. Tell my dear love, sick and I can go, sick and I can go, love, sick and I can go. Train on the island, Lord, I heard.
I'm so grateful to get the opportunity to learn so many different aspects about our favorite music here on this podcast by talking to musicians of all types, but especially to musicians like Allison, who have faced challenges well beyond the technical challenges of learning her instrument, but also challenges related to gender roles and similar obstacles. Looking back and getting to learn a bit about the incredible players who preceded this generation and even the 2 generations ago was enlightening. I'm really glad I got the opportunity, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Well, what a wonderful honor it was to speak with Alison Brown. For me, it was a pinch me moment. It was just great to hear about her journey and what she's still up to and the great music, and being able to see her at IBMA next week is going to be a highlight.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the first Ladies of Bluegrass was a band that was being assembled. That was very cool to find out. It was also
Over 27 years. Wow.
Yeah. It was also cool to be able to look back and find out about the predecessors in this art. There's a lot of stuff coming up. Let's start with you, Liz. What's going on at bluegrassjamsnearme.com?
Lots of great stuff. If you're interested in that super slow jam, I'm having another one on the 24th. And of course, that's leading up to the Warnick Camp, which will be on October 10th through 12th. That's a whole weekend of jamming and having a great time, really big immersion into learning how to jam or just getting better at jamming. I don't want to give the impression it's only for newbies, right? It's for anyone who wants to get better and more confident at jamming.
Yeah, those classes are really helpful.
And how about you, Mike? What do you got going on?
Well, hyper-locally, I'll be playing in a street festival band here in Brooklyn in Park Slope on 9th Street between 8th and the Park on Saturday, September 27th. I think it starts around 3 o'clock, and we'll be playing for a couple hours. It'll be classic country, bluegrass, who knows what else. It's going to be fun. More generally, Fiddle Hell is rapidly approaching, November 13th through 16th up in Westford, Massachusetts. You can still get early bird tickets, by the way, you fiddle players and others, because all different instruments are going to be there, and it should be a lot of fun.
So much good bluegrass going on in the bluegrass borough of Brooklyn. So
Yep.
we invite you to come out and play with us. And of course, follow us online at our social media, which is Bluegrass Brooklyn, spelled BKLYN. And we look forward to seeing you very soon.
Yep, we look forward to seeing you around the Jam Circle. We're listening to Alison Brown, Under the 5 Wire, on her The Company You Keep album.